ElevatEd Community Hub is a platform that I founded, and the goal primarily is to support the development and growth of teachers with skills that will help them to achieve better results in the classroom. So it's all about helping us as teachers to become more effective, to be able to execute our jobs better for the purpose of achieving better learning outcomes and, of course, improving the quality of education, starting with Nigeria and then eventually, hopefully, growing bigger than that. So we are, like it says here, filling the skill gap through training and providing resources. And this is the very first session that we're hosting. Thank you for being a part of it. In addition to the sessions and the resources, a huge part of what we do at ElevatEd is also going to involve conducting research, because we realize that we can't just operate in the blind. We need to be able to understand what teachers need, where their challenges lie, and then focus on those areas through our interventions. So there are going to be lots of surveys, lots of questionnaires, interviews, and other forms of research that hopefully you and other teachers around the country will be a part of. And well, this is myself, Adini Okumbawo. All of this just describes how and why I chose to go into this field, my passion for education, and my goal down here says, I just want to make a difference in the system to help us to improve how we deliver education, because I believe that that is going to impact the quality of the children that we raise through our school system. And now for the icebreaker. So you can, on your phones or on your laptops, whatever device you're using, you can click on this link, menti.com, and then enter this code. So when you click on menti.com, it's going to request a code, and then this is the code that you're putting in, 21791547. So you can respond with another reaction and emoji once you've done that, and then we'll move on to the next stage. So we're switching to the Menti tab now. It's just a quick question asking about what recyclable resources we're most interested in working with in the classroom. So once you have entered the link, you can also scan this barcode. Once you've done that, you can respond on your phone or on your laptop, and then the responses are going to pop up here. Who's navigating the platform, please say so in the comments so that we can try and fix it. Oh, we have one here, old newspapers. That would be interesting. And while that's going on Menti, if you have any additional comments, anything you would like to say so far, please feel free to unmute your microphones and speak. Also, if there are any resources that you are curious about, if you have used any of these before and you would like to share your experience, you can go ahead and share as well. Just feel free to unmute your microphone and share your experience with us. Okay, that's a bit over 1 minute. Thank you to those who responded. We're going to continue with the rest of the session. But if you have the link and you haven't entered it yet, please feel free and so go ahead and do that. back to our slides now. We're getting into the meaning of sustainability, and of course, getting to also understand how and why it's important for us as educators to incorporate sustainable practices in the classroom. So the meaning here says sustainability is the act, we would say, or the process of using resources responsibly and efficiently to avoid depletion, right? And also meeting today's needs without reducing the ability of the next generation to meet their own needs. This is better explained using finite resources like oil, right, and other natural resources. That is why there's a huge shift from non-renewable energy like petrol and coal and the likes to solar power and other forms of renewable energy, because scientists have started to realize that these resources are not infinite. And if we continue to use them irresponsibly, then we're going to run out at some point. And then where do we go from there, right? And then also creating long lasting systems that minimize waste and support the environment. I think this is the one that concerns us the most as educators, especially because we're trying to kill two birds with one stone. On one hand, we're trying to learn about how to incorporate sustainability in our classrooms. And on the other hand, we recognize that there are many teachers, there are many schools that lack adequate resources for teaching. A lot of these teaching resources are quite expensive, and sometimes they're not easily accessible from nursery all the way up to senior secondary school. So it's going to be helpful for us to learn how we can use something that would ideally have been turned into waste to facilitate learning in our classrooms. And then also looking at trends in other sectors, just to let us know that other sectors are starting to do things in line with sustainability, trying to learn how to incorporate sustainable practices into their craft. And it's time for us to do the same as teachers. So we have here with fashion, a lot of fashion designers are starting to use, they're starting to recycle, working with old fabric, the scraps that were left up from clothes that they've already sewn, also using them to make new designs just to reduce the amount of waste that they're contributing to the planet. And we see it as well in agriculture with the practices that they choose to adopt, and also crop rotation, using less land and supporting the environment as well. With technology, although that's a bit of a gray area because we have AI that is apparently contributing to the challenge, but at the same time, there are lots of efforts into incorporating sustainable practices and less waste in technology. And energy, I think, is the one that everyone can see most evidently with the use of solar power, with the use of wind energy. We also have biogas and other forms of renewable energy that we are beginning to adopt instead of petrol, kerosene, and other forms of fossil fuels. And the benefits, I would say, are limitless, but of course, we have to put some down. And these are the ones that specifically apply to us as teachers and for our students in the classrooms. It boosts creativity. It might not be as easy as it looks, but as time goes on, the more you interact with these practices, the easier it becomes, the better it gets, the better it feels for you to work with them. So you get more creative over time. It improves your problem solving skills because you of course have to be very resourceful in trying to find the right materials and putting them together, sometimes in ways that have never been done before. It saves cost. This I think is one that we should encourage everyone to try rather than having to buy resources. You can just make things out of cardboard, plastic, wood, or literally anything that you can find around. And for our students, it teaches them real world skills because in addition to the fact that we are making learning hands-on with crafts and having these fun-looking resources, we are also learning a lot of application because with some of these recyclable materials, you can barely create 2D items. So you're not just creating a chart on the wall or a picture in your classroom, you're building something that your students can interact with. And that way they learn a skill more hands-on than they would have with just regular verbal teaching. It encourages us to be more responsible, taking responsibility for our environment. Like I just said, it makes learning more hands-on and fun, and it supports global goals, specifically the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, which we're getting into now. So as I believe we know, the UN's SDGs for 2030, number 4 is quality education. And one of their targets is that through education, through the classrooms, students are equipped with the skills and the knowledge of how to incorporate sustainable practices, how to not just learn about it, it's not just a topic or a subject that we learn about in class, but to incorporate it as a lifestyle, as a behavior, something that they practice on a daily basis. And that's one thing I believe this training is going to help us adopt as well. And these are the markers for how to measure if they have met this goal. Number 1 is still global citizenship education. Next is education for sustainable development. Although I wouldn't say it's mainstream yet, but we're getting there. And through platforms like this, hopefully we're going to get there before 2030. The next is national education policies. I, I won't just say much on that, but again, we're getting there, and the curriculum as well. But teacher education, that's one of the gaps that ElevatEd is trying to fill, ensuring that educators in Nigeria are starting to understand some of these things and incorporating them in the classroom. So this is not just about making the classroom fun. This is not just about saving money. It's also about incorporating these sustainable practices on a large scale in your classroom, outside of your classroom, even in our personal lives. I believe these skills will be really helpful for us as well. And now we're going to look at some examples of how to incorporate sustainable practices in the classroom. We're looking at this primarily from the perspective of resources that we can use and how to facilitate learning using recyclable resources. So on the left hand, where it says present practice, we have what is being done conventionally in most schools, in most classrooms, and these are mostly just charts on the wall. And on the right side, we have what is possible. So these are additional things that we can include into our teaching styles. And I would like to say before we get started that while I'm using these on the left as examples of what is not good enough, and that's not to say that they're terrible. These are amazing ideas. They're great. Charts help serve as reminders for our students to be able to refer back to what they have learned. They also beautify our classrooms, of course, but I'm just trying to show that in addition to the charts, we can also have something better and more productive to use in the classroom. So this one has examples of measurement activities. These are charts of different kinds of scales, units of measurement, and other tools that we can use to measure. And then on the right side, we have a balance scale, one that was built from plastic and one that was built from wood. So like I was saying earlier, with the chart, all the students can do is look at it. If you wanted to involve them, maybe they will be the ones to cut out the images and glue them onto the wall, but that's really where it ends. The rest of it is just memorization. But with the practical hands-on method using recyclable resources, what you have is something that your students can actually interact with. You can go through the creation process together, and you would have your students measuring things, understanding how and why different resources work. And of course, I hope we also know that you don't have to use exactly what we have here. So in this one, we have plastic and sticks with strings, but you could use whatever you have around you. It could be a piece of straw. If you don't have a plastic bottle, if you have something bigger, you can use that as well. You can build any structure that you like. And if rice is not accessible, we have sand everywhere. You can scoop up some sand and use it in your classroom instead of the throwing. It could just really be on the table, or you could even take it outside. You can have an outdoors activity. And we can also keep the chat box active right now. If you have any contributions, if these are things that you have tried before in your classroom, please feel free to say so. And if you would like to share right here, you can go ahead and raise your hand or just unmute your microphone and share your experiences in your classroom. Okay, moving on. This is another example of these are charts from classrooms that I went into for research and took pictures of, by the way. So this one here was on how to maintain a healthy environment. So environmental care, pollution, cleanliness, hygiene. And there are images here of recycled bins of people sweeping and cleaning the environment. But what we could also do to take this further is to create systems in the classroom to encourage a healthy environment, to maintain our own healthy environment. So these are, again, resources that we could get very easily around us. It could be a broken bucket that can no longer hold water, and then you just maybe decorate it or place it somewhere in the classroom. And you can take it further by choosing to have a whole recycling station where you have different containers for glass, plastic, paper, and other forms of waste. And what this does is it serves as number one, keeping the environment clean, which is the primary goal. And also, it over time can be a resource station for your students because over time, as they get used to this system, you will find your students typically going there to pick up plastic, paper, or whatever you have in there, and using them to create things, even without you having to tell them. So during their break time, at the end of the day, before they go home, or at the start of the day, they will find ways to create things on their own. And children can be really creative as long as they understand what to do or they understand that they are able to do some of these things. This one is a literacy, it's a numeracy activity on the left here. So this one was designed by the students. They did it themselves, and that's why you can see that some of the lines are not really straight. And I think that was really great. It was really great that the teacher gave them the freedom and the ability to create some of these things themselves. But again, with this approach, that's where it ends. The paper plates go up on the wall and that's it. But with what we have on the right here, it can serve as a tool for teaching numeracy. And it's also just something that I believe children would like to play with, even outside of classroom sessions, even when they're not learning maths. I mean, it's pizza, it's fruits, and any other round thing that you can think of. They would definitely want to play with this when they get bored. And sometimes the concerns that teachers have is that the children will break the things or they won't handle them with care. But they're free, you can easily replace them. And over time, the students will actually learn to become more responsible in how they handle these items because that's all they have, right? And involving them in the creation as well, just like this one on the left. You can involve the children in the painting and the cutting and the drawing of the lines. It's just that you shouldn't expect perfection, especially if you're working with younger children, but definitely you should involve them in the process. This is a similar example with literacy, where here we have this alphabet train that looks really pretty, but its primary function is for memorization and reference. But on the right here with this bottle cap board, it's more interactive. And the reason for younger children is something that can even help them develop their fine motor skills and other skills. And it's one that can also be scaled up depending on the class that you're teaching. So if you're working with younger children like nursery or early primary, they could just do alphabets, two-letter words. If you're getting into primary four, primary five, getting into secondary school, this exact same approach can be used just with different letters. You could use word combinations. You're teaching them types of sentences. You can have different words that represent each part of speech to get them to screw it on to create their words. And many other ways that this can be used. This one, I believe, speaks for itself. On the left, there is a picture of a potted plant, and on the right, you have actual plants. And this, again, is something that can be done very easily. When we were in primary school, we planted these seeds, and some also planted corn. That's an approach that we can continue to take. Or if it's possible to get other kinds of plants, indoor plants, that's an option as well. And I've seen some videos of avocados that people plant in house with like a toothpick and stuff. That's another option to consider. But again, making it more hands-on, and I believe we all know plants are good to have around. So you could just have a little plant station in the classroom. You could assign different children to be responsible for the plants, or each student can have their own plant as well. So this one is to show that these approaches are not only meant for simple, basic concepts. They can be applied to more scientific subjects and topics as well. Here on the left, we have the digestive system chart. It has all the organs, it has all the words. But on the right here, this was from my classroom, by the way, when I was a teacher. On the right here, we have a digestive system model that is more interactive. And the way it works is from the mouth here, the student could actually pour something in and watch how it traveled from the mouth all the way and came out at the other end. And this is an example of how far we can go with recyclable resources. And this can also apply to other subjects if you're thinking about senior secondary school, physics, chemistry, biology. There are different ways that you can adopt some of these techniques. Oh, I see someone with their hand raised. Please go ahead and feel free. You can unmute your microphone and share with us.
Okay, great, great. Thank you very much for all that you've engaged us with this afternoon. I have a question. Mine is a question.
Okay.
Would there not be a need for like art skill for a teacher to be able to execute this? So this is really nice. I've seen it happen in various places, and
Okay.
I really think that that's the way to go truly. But what will guide the teacher? Would it be someone that has, hearts, the skill of hearts, or
Mm.
would you have to bring in somebody that, how do you actually execute this? Will there be books that you need to, refer to for ideas as to this setup? And then what if the teacher in the classroom does not have, that skill to build the first prototype for the children to then follow after?
That's a fantastic question. Thank you so much. That's a very valid point. Not everyone has the innate skill set, especially when it comes to art, to be able to draw or craft or make crafts in the classroom. But I will say that's where technology comes in. I wouldn't want us to rely too much or entirely on digital tools and AI, but they really do come in handy. That's what we're going to be addressing in the second phase of this presentation, learning how we can draw inspiration, how we can search for tools and resources and ideas online, and how we can also refine and modify our lesson plans using um, AI and other digital tools. So like you said, not every teacher might be able to just naturally bring it out. But if you have your regular lesson plan, you have a lesson note for teachers and schools where you have to do that every week. You can just put in your topic, your goal, what you want the students to gain out of the lesson, and then you can take it from there. So you can either start with entering your topic into a website that will give you ideas, and then you put that into maybe ChatGPT, or just work with that directly. Use that as a guide. Use what you find online as a guide, or you start with ChatGPT. You put in your topic and all the other details. It gives you a plan, and then you just follow that plan like you would with your regular lesson plan. And does that answer your question? Or
Yes, it does. It does. It answers this to a great extent. And then when you get the lesson plan, you can then figure out skills internally that can do the cuttings and the first prototype. That's good.
yeah, okay. Before we proceed, are there any other questions or contributions? Take that as a no. If you're still with us, please you can respond with a thumbs up, just so we know that you're still following, and then we'll move on. Yeah. Right. So getting into the digital tools now, just like I said, these two on the bottom are primarily for drawing ideas or for learning exactly how to get things done. So for instance, if you want to create something, most likely there's a video on YouTube that explains how to do that. And another really helpful way that we can use YouTube in our classroom is there are some concepts that are difficult to explain to children. So as an adult, you understand it, it makes perfect sense to you, but it's really hard to break it down to the level of students in primary school or nursery. An example from my experience is when I was trying to teach my students how a leap year works. We all know that every 4 years we have 366 days instead of 365. And I had done my personal research to understand why that happens. But it took me almost 1 hour to be able to break it down to the level that 8-year-old children could understand. But Dr. Binox was able to do it in less than 10 minutes because these videos have been curated for that purpose. Now, you may not always want to show your video, show your students videos in the classroom, but what you can do is watch these videos on your own time, take the knowledge, understand how to communicate those concepts, and then use them in the classroom. You can also, like I mentioned, get ideas on how to craft things using various items from YouTube. And Pinterest is the same, just in picture form. If you search for a topic, for instance, if you just search for, say, verbs, and it shows you different examples of activities that you can do to facilitate a session on verbs. Going to the top here, we have ChatGPT. I believe a lot of us must have already attended sessions where we learn how to use ChatGPT or even gone to seek the knowledge intentionally. But what I aim to do here today is to show us a prompt that we can use to modify our lesson plan. And with this approach, you can even have something that you use to write your lesson notes and facilitate your lessons just like you would with your regular lesson notes. But instead of getting the ideas from your textbook, you get them from a combination of that, your own knowledge, and what ChatGPT gives you. Now, like I said earlier, having chat in your classroom is not terrible. It's encouraged because it looks beautiful. It's something for your students to look at, and it's also nice to help them remember things. And one way that it really comes in handy is when there are concepts where you really need your children to be able to go back to it. And sometimes there are things that you want to teach your students, but you can't really find a picture that describes it the way you would like. You can use AI tools to generate an image that shows what you want them to see. And another one really helps is that it helps your students to feel represented in the classroom. So a lot of the charts that we see, especially the ones that you download online, they don't have our skin color. And, I feel like it gives this distance between the students and what they see. But if you are able to generate your own images using AI, then you can craft something that looks more like your students, have the same skin tone, and that way I feel more relatable to them. And the elevated lesson planner here is one that we're developing. It's intended to be a tool that in less than 5 minutes, less than 2 minutes, you enter the details about your lesson and it generates a plan for you. So it's still in the works, but I would like for us to take a look at it and try it out in a few minutes. But what we're going to start with is we're going to take a look at this sample prompts. And then what we're going to do with it is I would like for us to try together to create a lesson plan. So going back to Menti, we're going to put in a prompt. So what we need is the subjects of the lesson. We need the topic, the age of the students or the class, the duration of the lesson, and the goal of why we're facilitating this lesson. So this is just a sample prompt here for physics in the senior classes. But we're going back to Menti in a few seconds. And I would like for us to try and just put in prompts based on maybe your class or any age group that you have in mind. And then we're going to pick one of those randomly to create a lesson plan. So we're going to Menti. I'm going to share that screen now. And just like we did at the beginning, you can go to this link, menti.com. It's also in the chat. I believe you can find it there, menti.com. Then enter this code. Then when you get there, you're going to see the prompts to enter the details. We're going to pick one at random, and then we're going to go into ChatGPT and review the results that it gives us. So this is how it looks. Um, like I mentioned earlier, I believe a lot of us have attended lots of sessions or done a lot of research on how to use AI in the classroom, but I wanted us to see this as something that can be used more with this. You have your you have your you have your scheme of work, you have your goals for the week or for the term. What you can do is put all of those into ChatGPT rather than having to recycle your old lesson notes over and over again. You can have something new and refreshing every term, every academic year for your students by doing this, even though you're treating the same set of topics and trying to help your students develop the same set of skills. You can have this, and then once it gives you everything that you need, you have the topics, you have the goal here, it gives you a step by step on how to facilitate the lesson. It gives you a list of activities to make it hands-on and to incorporate sustainability. Even with see, this one has 3 different activities that you can explore depending on how much time you have, the interest level of your students. You can choose to stay on one activity. You can choose to do only 2. You can decide to have all 3. And actually, sometimes new ideas can come up depending on how spontaneous you choose to be. And it could even be an activity that comes up in the moment that you choose to facilitate. It also gives you a talking prompt on how to engage your students so that while you're creating these things, you're not just quiet, but you're actually exploring how they work and your students are learning while they're using their hands at the same time. It also gives you expected learning outcomes. You can choose to go with this, or you can choose to create your own based on what you have been working with previously. This reflection, I think, is really important. It's a way of recapping the lesson at the end of everything. And you also, that's it. That's it. And depending on how much you want, if you wanted to give you more specifics on how to specifically facilitate a hands-on craft activity, AI can do that for you as well. Moving on very quickly to the next tool that I would like for us to try, and this one we will have to work with individually, is the lesson planner app that ElevatEd is currently developing. So I'm going to paste the link in the chat. Please copy the link. You can paste in your browser to interact with this tool. And just try and use it to generate a lesson with any specific age group and other details of your choice. And I would like if we could try that within the next 3 to 5 minutes and come back to give reviews. Please confirm if you can still hear me and react with a thumbs up or something while I paste the link to the web app, and then we can try it. Thank you for that. So I've sent the link. Please go ahead and check it out. And while we're doing that, if you have any questions on how it works, if you have any challenges at any point, please feel free to unmute your microphone and speak and let us know. This is what it looks like. And once you click on start planning, you get into the subject, the class, the topic, your goal for the lesson, the duration, and assessment method. You can select all of that within the app, and it generates a lesson plan for you within minutes. Okay, that's our time. The floor is still open if you're done checking. And if you're not, you could just let us know, maybe type or unmute your microphone and let us know if you need more time to keep exploring the platform. Okay, in the absence of any of that, we're going to keep going, but still the floor is open whenever you're done to share your feedback. Please go ahead, ElevatEd.
Okay, thank you for the platform. Um, I explored it using exactly the same prompts that you had given us on chat for the ChatGPT
Okay.
plan. Can you hear me?
Yes, okay.
Okay. But I recall that you had said that it was still work in progress. So the flow was very good. It was very easy to follow. And then when I put in my prompt and submitted, I I observed that it was repeating, that same prompt and then adding a few more things to it for each of the sections. We had the opportunity to pick all the sections that we wanted it to
Yeah,
give us information on. So for all of those sections, he repeated the prompt and then I think one or two additional information. So I assume that you probably are still working on that output, after submission. But besides that, I think the flow was very, very easy. But the outcome, I expected a bit more context into the lesson plan. But I want to
lesson
believe
plan.
that it's still working. Yes. Thank you.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for sharing that feedback. It has been noted, and we're going to work on it, and you'll definitely be updated when we have a full working version. If anybody else would like to share.
Then I think it also just gave me the opportunity to pick projects or to pick just one option. I can't go back
Yeah.
there. I'm trying to, but there was a particular section where I could pick if I wanted it to be project outcome or there were some other options there. I would have
Yeah,
preferred if I could select more than one, but
that's a
that
good.
section allowed
Okay,
me to project, select one, which was, project that I selected, but I preferred multi-selection at that point.
that's it. Thank you for that. Noted. And there's a message in the chat as well. It says great layout. It is a good framework, but the content is not too prescriptive. It gives allowance for the teacher to be creative and adapt lesson to the students' needs, interests, and abilities. Thank you so much for that feedback. I guess we'll work on making it more specific. And the idea, of course, is that the teacher doesn't have to take everything as they're verbatim. So yes, it does give allowance for personal, individual creativity on the part of the teacher. And if you would like to involve your students as well, you can also allow them shine, let them know what the plan is, and if they have any additional ideas that can be added to it. So I believe we have come to the end of this section. If you have additional feedback, please go ahead and type it in the comments. These footnotes are just additional things I think will help us be able to incorporate these ideas better. The first one here says student interest, and that's what I just spoke about, involving your students. If you know what your students like, you can use that to craft an activity. For most topics, still using our example of force in physics, you can choose to either use a car as an example, you can choose to use an airplane, you can use a football, or anything else that your students are interested in. You're not limited in the approach that you can take, and there are of course resources for any area you choose to focus on. Student involvement. This is one area that I know some teachers struggle with, where you feel the need, or because of the way the resources are designed, sometimes you have to make them before the class. You have to bring them in already finished to showcase to your students. But this way, you can involve them in the creation of it. If you're working with plastic, cardboard, if you're working with anything that's not too dangerous for students to handle, depending on their age and how much time is available, you can just bring in the resources, work on it with them. You're doing the building together while you are discussing how it works and what it means and whatever else in the context of the lesson. Using the digestive system as an example, in the process of it, the children were about 7 years old at that time, and it was surprising how easily they were able to grasp the concept, because we were creating while learning about the different organs in the body. Of course, some of the words were difficult for them to pronounce, especially esophagus. But walking through it and seeing where it is, and then being able to relate it to where it is in their own body, and especially being able to actually pour something through and watch how it travels through the human body and comes out at the other end, it helped them to be able to understand. And while they may not be able to use all the technicals, they may not be able to use all the technical terms, they definitely understand and were able to explain to myself and to others how these things work in the human body. And that's how it works with any concept that you're exploring in your classroom. And gamification is just an approach. So while we're making tools, there are also different ways that we can create fun games in our classrooms. Again, using tools like Pinterest, using ChatGPT, using YouTube. You can search for games that you can play with your students to help them understand these concepts. And there might even be games that you already know, maybe some that you played when you were a child, that you can use in the classroom to explain concepts. And creativity is just here to let us know that there shouldn't be a limit to how creative we get while we are teaching. It is our responsibility. We should take ownership in our classrooms for our students' learning, and really just do everything that you can beyond your lesson notes, beyond the expectations of your school, the expectations of the parents, to give in your best to ensure that your children are learning and to ensure that they're having fun while doing it where possible. And you'll see that it also helps you to feel better about your job in the long run. Finally, if there are any questions or comments or contributions, please feel free to share. You can again raise your hand, you can type in the comment section, or just unmute your microphone, go ahead and speak. Yes, Olua from Lario, please go ahead.
Okay, hi, Ajeni. Thank you so much for this. Um, it has really helped to know that there's so much that we can do with the resources that are around us. And I'm looking forward to trying this. And I'm hoping that the recording of this session can be available to us so that, when next we have to check, to see how we can make things better in our classrooms, we can always come back to this. But I've learned a lot, and I think that I'm going to be trying some of them. And now, even though I teach online mostly, I think that some of these prompts might just help me to plan my lessons and give me some insights into how I can engage my children. So, yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that feedback, Fumilayo. It's great to hear, and I look forward to. I hope you'll share your experiences with us. You can do that on the group, or you can just reach out, or even tag us on LinkedIn. You can post there with whatever you do and what results you see from your students online. Are there any other questions or comments for Laura? Oh, and yes, the recording will be made available. It's going to be shared. And the take-home guide is just little a document that describes, it's going to contain a summary of this session, as well as a step-by-step guide of how we can incorporate sustainable practices in the classroom, how it works, the importance of it, and ideas and steps that we can incorporate verbatim in our classroom or put our own individual spins on to try out different ideas in the classroom. And finally, the networking here is just for us to, if you would like to connect with one another on LinkedIn, on other social media platforms, you can paste the link in the chat. You can put in your phone name there so we can follow each other and connect so we know what we're up to. We can engage with one another's posts. While we're at it, please, you can also go ahead and follow Elevated Teachers Hub on LinkedIn. I'm going to type the name there. You can search for it. You can follow us. You can also follow my personal page, Adini Odumawo, on LinkedIn. While we're doing that, I would like to thank everyone who joined, everyone who stayed until the end, for listening, for taking time out of your weekend, especially during the holiday, to be a part of this session. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to future collaboration, working together in subsequent sessions and other collaborations. Thank you all so much. We have come to the end, but we're not ending just yet, so we can go ahead and continue to connect with one another and enjoy the rest of your day. And still, if you have any questions, you can still unmute your microphone and speak for the next 1 to 2 minutes. Thank you, everyone. Once we're done, you can exit the chat, and we can keep this going on the WhatsApp group as well if you would like to um, comment on anything, if you would like to drop your social media handles there as well. We can keep it going on the group. But for now, the session has come to an end, and this call is going to be ending now. Have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your evening.